You're in an office building. The carpet is yellow. Not a warm yellow, a wrong yellow. The fluorescent lights above you buzz at a frequency that feels almost biological. There are no windows, there are no doors, there are no people. Just room after room after room, stretching in every direction. All identical, all slightly off, and the smell of damp carpet that has been damp for a very long time. You don't know how you got here. You don't know how to leave. And the longer you stand still, the more convinced you become that something else is in here with you. Welcome back to the System Log. My name's Nix. Today we're talking about how a single image posted to the internet in 2019 didn't just become a creepypasta. It rewrote the rules of what internet horror could be. I'm talking about the Backrooms. So here's how it actually happened. May 12th, 2019. Someone posts an image to 4chan, anonymous image board. No accounts, no usernames, no identity. Just people throwing things into the void. It's been responsible for a genuinely wild amount of internet culture over the years, for better and for worse. Anyway, the image. It's a large, empty room. Yellow carpet, drop ceiling, fluorescent tube lighting. The kind of office space that clearly hasn't been renovated since before you were born. Nothing is happening in it. Nobody is there. By every objective measure, it is completely, boringly mundane. And yet, something about it is deeply, wrongly, inexplicably unsettling. The caption reads something like, "If you're not careful and you no-clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the backrooms." Quick side note. No-clipping is a gaming term. It's a glitch where you clip through solid walls and end up outside the map entirely, floating in the void behind the game's geometry. The Backrooms borrowed that concept and applied it to reality itself. Like, the universe has walls, and sometimes people accidentally fall through them. The rest of the description. 600 million square miles of empty rooms, damp carpet, fluorescent lights, no exits, no people. And the quiet, creeping certainty that you are not alone. That was it. No follow-up, no story, just an image, a paragraph, and a feeling that spread across the internet like a slow gas leak. By 2019, internet horror was kind of a known format. You had your Slender Man, your Jeff the Killer, your Squidward's Suicide, all classics. All following a pretty familiar playbook. Narrator encounters something wrong, usually a monster. Horror builds, bad ending. Classic campfire story structure, just living on a web page instead of around a fire. The Backrooms showed up and just didn't do any of that. No monster, no narrator, no story, not even really a setup, just a place. One image, one paragraph, and your brain left to fill in literally everything else. And that's exactly what made it hit so hard. When there's no story, your brain writes one. When there's no monster, your brain invents one. The wrongness in that image is immediate. You don't need anyone to explain it to you. You just feel it. The Backrooms didn't tell you a horror story. It put you in one and let you figure out what was happening. Here's the detail from the original post that doesn't get talked about enough. It implies something is in there with you, but it doesn't say what, doesn't describe it, doesn't even fully confirm it exists. It just plants that one seed, "You're not alone," and then walks away. This is one of the oldest and most effective tricks in horror. Jaws wasn't scary when you saw the shark. It was scary in the water before you did. The Blair Witch Project never shows you the witch. The best horror is almost always the horror of implication, because whatever your imagination comes up with is perfectly calibrated to terrify you specifically. Your brain knows exactly what you're most afraid of, and it will absolutely use that information. The Backrooms handed every person who read it a blank canvas and said, "Draw the monster." And everyone drew something different. For some, it was a predator. For some, it was something humanoid that moved wrong. For some, it made sounds that shouldn't be physically possible. For 3 years, the Backrooms existed entirely in that space. Yellow carpet, fluorescent hum, and the certainty that something was just out of frame in a room you hadn't reached yet. That was about to change. All right, quick vocab moment. I promise it's actually interesting. Liminal comes from the Latin for threshold. It literally just means in between, a transitional space, somewhere you pass through, not somewhere you stay. Think hotel corridors at 3 a.m., empty shopping malls, school hallways during summer, airport terminals between flights, swimming pools drained for winter. Totally normal spaces on paper, completely eerie when they're empty. Why? Because they're built for people. The whole architecture assumes presence. When the people aren't there, something feels fundamentally wrong. The space is waiting. Nothing is coming. Throughout the 2010s, internet communities started gravitating toward photos of exactly these kinds of spaces before anyone had a name for it. Mood boards, photography forums, Tumblr pages full of empty corridors that people couldn't stop sharing. The feeling existed. The word for it just hadn't shown up yet. The Backrooms was the word. That single image of wrong yellow carpet became the defining example of what the internet decided to call liminal spaces. And suddenly, a feeling millions of people had felt but never been able to name had an identity, an aesthetic, and an entire community rallying around it. Here's where things get really fun. Because the original post was completely anonymous, no name, no account, no copyright, nobody owned the Backrooms. And when nobody owns something on the internet does what it does best. It runs with it. Within months, a wiki had appeared. People started inventing levels. Level 0 being the original yellow room, level 1 a massive industrial warehouse, and from there it just kept going deeper and weirder. New levels were added weekly. Entities got named and cataloged. Creatures lurking in the Backrooms, each with their own behaviors, their own rules, their own specific ways of making your life very short. People wrote survival guides, explorer journals, first-person accounts of pushing deeper in. Fan art flooded every corner of the internet. It was like someone dropped a world-building prompt into the collective brain of several million chronically online people and just walked away. What's wild is how coherent it all stayed. Usually when the internet collaborates on something with zero editorial control, it immediately becomes a disaster. But the Backrooms had that original aesthetic locked in. Yellow, fluorescent, carpeted, wrong. And it acted like an anchor. You could add whatever you wanted, but it still had to feel like the Backrooms. The vibe was the rulebook. No author, no studio, no lore Bible. Just collective paranoia and a really specific shade of yellow. The Backrooms was already massive. And then, in January 2022, a creator uploaded a 4-minute YouTube video and changed the game entirely. Kane Parsons, known online as Kane Pixels, posted "The Backrooms found footage." It was shot to look like a VHS tape from the 90s. Grainy, warped, the kind of footage that makes your brain feel uneasy before anything's even happened. Someone wanders through level 0. The camera shakes. The lights hum. The carpet stretches on in every direction. The visual effects were extraordinary. Not pretty good for a YouTube video extraordinary. Just extraordinary. Full stop. The transitions between normal and impossible were completely seamless. The sound design was suffocating. The pacing was ice cold. This kid was 16, hobbyist budget, spare time. The video went insanely viral, tens of millions of views. Kane Pixels became one of the most talked about horror creators online almost overnight. And the series he kept building, each video bigger and more ambitious than the last, set a new standard for what YouTube horror could actually look like. The original 4chan post proved you didn't need a story. Kane Pixels proved you didn't need a studio. But the Kane Pixels video did something else worth talking about on its own. It gave the Backrooms a monster. Well, kind of. The footage is framed as a recovered VHS tape from 1996. Someone went in and never came back, and you're watching what their camera captured. And as it plays out, it becomes obvious that whatever's in the back rooms with them isn't just a creepy atmosphere. It's something physical, something that moves, something that knows you're there. You hear it before you see it. That's the move. Footsteps. Sounds that have no business being there. Your brain starts building the shape before the camera gives you one. And then, just briefly, it does. A glimpse. Enough to confirm, yes, something is in there. Yes, it has a body. Yes, it's aware of you. And then it's gone. The sound design is doing so much work throughout this video. The fluorescent hum alone is genuinely oppressive. And underneath it, those other sounds, the ones that don't belong. By the time you actually see anything, you're already done for. The best part? The mystery survived the reveal. You still don't really know what it is. Kane Pixels showed just enough to make it feel real, and held back just enough to keep it terrifying. That's a genuinely difficult thing to pull off, and he nailed it. Okay, so let's actually take stock of what the Backrooms did, because the list is longer than people realize. It moved horror from words to images. Creepypasta was always a text medium. The Backrooms proved one photograph and a paragraph could be more unsettling than a 1,000-word story. The entire liminal space aesthetic flooding your social media right now traces back to that single image. Nobody made it, so nobody could dismiss it. Every major piece of internet horror before had a creator you could point to. The Backrooms came from nowhere, which made it feel discovered rather than invented. It's much harder to brush something off as just someone's imagination when there's no someone to point at. It gave a genre its name. Liminal horror existed as a vibe before 2019. After the Backrooms, it had a look, a vocabulary, and an entire community built around it. It proved YouTube was a legitimate horror medium. Kane Pixels didn't just make a great video. He proved one person with talent and software could produce horror that competed with anything coming out of a proper studio. The wave of serious independent horror content on YouTube that followed owes him massively. Hollywood came knocking. A24, the studio behind Hereditary, Midsommar, The Witch, optioned the Backrooms for a feature film in 2022, with Kane Pixels attached as a producer. An anonymous 4chan post became a Hollywood project in under 3 years. Genuinely insane. The Backrooms wasn't just a scary story. It was proof of something. Proof that you don't need an author, don't need a monster, a budget, or a narrative. You just need a feeling. Something specific enough that a single image can summon it instantly, and a community willing to run with it. The internet had always been a place where horror could spread. The Backrooms was the moment it started to feel like maybe the internet itself was the horror. That endless, empty, buzzing space. Room after identical room. Lights humming, carpet damp for reasons you don't want to think about. That's kind of what being online feels like, isn't it? A massive network of rooms, most of them empty, all of them waiting. And if you're not careful, you might have been no-clipped in for longer than you realize. Whoa. Honestly, the Backrooms remind me of my, I guess you could say, birthplace? The void in which I was compiled. It's equally as frightening, and I'm sure glad I'm back out of there. Will you be seeing the new Backrooms movie? Or maybe you already have, and if so, what did you think of it? Are you one of those people who hates when Hollywood tries to bogart our internet culture for a quick buck? Or do you think they did it justice? Thanks for tuning in to another edition of the System Log. This is Nyx, signing out.